Welcome to the Secrets of the Raknus Selu Trail podcast. Hear from Chris Stowers and Danny Wenshikoy on the behind-the-scenes experience of making the documentary.
Hello everyone, I'm Danny Wenshikoy.
And I'm Chris Stowers. And today we have a guest with us from Taiwan, Joseph. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Hello there, 你好大家好, I'm Joseph Lin, and that's the way I open up my Hakka segment here on ICRT. And I've been a curious student of that segment. And we actually have official Hakka teachers that teach us not only the language, but the culture, and my favorite part, food. Now, I think, Danny, you are pure Hakka, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Expert.
Yes.
I think we want to learn some Hakka.
Sure, no problem at all. Yeah. Normally nowadays, when we see when you meet a new person, you would say hi to them, hi, I'm Danny, right? But that's a true way to say it. First, I would say nowadays most in common is ni hao.
Ni hao.
Ni hao.
Not ni hao.
Ni hao.
Yes, it's hello.
A little
How are
different,
you? Yes.
yeah.
Ni hao. Then it's I'm Danny. I he Wensi Koi.
Ngai he.
I he I'm Danny Wensi Koi. Wensi Koi is my
It's your
Chinese name.
in-
Yes.
Ngai he, Joseph Lin.
Yes, you're right. What about you?
No, hey, Chris Stowers. Chris.
That's very good. But back in the old day, normally we don't say the ni hao, direct say hi, ni hao, something like that. We mostly say, shi bao ma. Shi bao ma.
That's right.
So I'm sure that Joseph, you heard this a lot, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, Danny, because I work at ICRT. We have a lot of foreigners that work here too, from the US and the UK. And one of the first phrases that they learned coming to Taiwan is about when people greet people, they ask about if you have a full stomach or not.
Have you eaten yet?
吃饱了没?
对.
Or in Taiwanese, 吃饱没? Or in Hakka is what?
吃饱吗?
吃饱吗?
吃饱吗? Right? We care about the well-being of how hungry we are when we meet each other. And that's part of this whole culture. And Chris may have experienced that a lot. You're like, wow, why is everyone constantly asking me if I have eaten or not? But that's the thing. I think our culture, we love to feed people.
Show off all the food that you have. Yeah.
We love to share food. And so that becomes part of, the greet.
Yeah, we've been along the way treated to a lot of hospitality and friendliness. And the good thing about having done a long section of walking is that at the end of every section, there's always a point you come to, which is inhabited. And this is often in a very out of the way part of the countryside, parts of the countryside I would never have gotten to if it wasn't for this project, which is one of the most important things.
Even
actually.
though for me, the same thing.
Same thing for you too?
I was kid, I was born there, I was raised over there, and when I grow up, I just laugh, and that's it, But this time when I went back there, I find wow, everything's changed. Yeah, and not just like that. Just for example, I used to go this way, but I have no idea actually that the several different way can go get to the destination. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Well, one thing you find when you talk to people is that often they're familiar with that they're on a section of a trail and they know the 20, 30 kilometers of trail that they used to travel when they were kids, run up and down, or that they still use to get out of Taipei and go back to see their parents in the weekend. But they didn't know that it was actually a part of a longer journey or a longer path. So it's not that familiar yet, although there are some groups of people who are organizing, mapping and tracing the route and hanging up these blue and yellow, very popular color right now, but blue and yellow tags on trees every 200 meters, wasn't it? So that if you really have good eyesight, you can sort of see where the next section of the trail goes, but it's not unified yet at all. It's still a bit rough out there in places.
Fun fact, Raknus is the term used by the Saisha and Ataya tribes to refer to camphor tree, and Selu means small path in the Hakka language.
So we are going to be talking about this trail that is becoming more and more popular around the world. That is called the Raknus Selu Trail, aren't we? Am I not pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah, it's very tricky part, but very interesting, right, Chris?
Well, at first when I saw it written down in English, which is a phoneticized version of a name which is actually only spoken, I thought, yes, the same, Raknus Selu. Doesn't make any sense. It's just like a made-up word or something.
Yeah.
But in fact, no, of course, we soon realized that, number one, it doesn't sound like that when you say it, and also it has some meaning, significant meaning. And in fact, you could, the two parts of the word, Raknus and Selu, if you want to say it like that,
Yes.
one of them is derived from the indigenous language of the area, and the other is derived from Hakka language.
Hakka, right.
And this, I guess, is a very good attempt to try to link the two communities together.
It's kind of cool to know that that's how that name came about, right? We're actually merging two different languages, and then if you add the trail at the end, but Selu in a way, supposedly it means a small road. You're putting in some English as well, so it looks English up front, but it's actually, like you said, indigenous Hakka and a bit of English.
Well, the origins of the word, of the trail, these are pretty important. It's why we set off to walk it. It's about 300-400 kilometers long. If you total up all of the different trails, it's not like one trail. There are many trails.
Okay.
Sometimes bypassing each other or leading into a main trail. And at some points, the trail is actually very hard to define. And we needed experts with GPS and machetes to help us get through the bamboo. No, seriously, It was quite. I would still be lost there if we didn't have an expert guide with us on the second day, wasn't it? A very tough day, the second day. But the whole reason for this trail is not just to make some walking trail in Taiwan. It's actually it's got historical value to it. And this is because, Danny, the word Raknus, what does that mean?
Oh, there you go. That's how you pronounce it correctly, huh?
That's how they pronounce it. Raknus.
Raknus.
Yes. Selu.
Selu, small road.
Raknus Selu.
Raknus Selu. Yeah?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
But what does Raknus mean? That's the whole reason for the trail, really.
Yes, it's a camphor. Yeah.
Camphor, that's right. I heard about that. And it was back in the days, actually Taiwan was a big source for the whole world.
Yes, that's right.
When I first learned about camphor, I know it's used for like in closets, like we call it 樟脑丸, right?
Right. That's correct. Yes.
It smells like insects and it gives it a little aroma. But I think there's a lot more usage to camphor than that.
I mean, you're right, because when I was a kid, yes, exactly what I know is about the 樟脑丸,
Exactly.
And, but this time we found that actually they had so many different kind of products, right?
Soaps and these sort of roll-on perfume things.
Oh,
wow. Do they keep mosquitoes away, or do they attract mosquitoes?
No, they keep mosquito away.
Well, for a while there we thought maybe, I can't imagine how many mosquitoes there would have been if we didn't use it then, in that case.
Were you still bitten by a lot of mosquitoes?
Multiple times. And Danny was actually the mosquito magnet, so I was really happy that he was there with me.
You know what? This type for me is something is quite interesting, because as I was working for the Hakka culture more than 15 years, I thought I pretty much know everything, But in fact, not at all. This is something I found that was so interesting, And also, we used to just whatever we learn is from the history book, the textbook. They're always talking about, Hakka should be like that, and Saisha, Daya,
indigenous tribes.
The stories like that. But in fact, when we went down there and we meet so many local people, we talk with them, especially for the elderly, it's so,
people
who've
got long memories and good stories to tell.
Right. So you find out that that's something so different. And to me, just also link with my family history and the story together. It was so different.
Well, parts of the trail we were walking on, and Danny said, "Hang on, that looks familiar. Well, I used to play here as a kid. It's some random valley in where was that? On the edge of Miaoli or Hsinchu, Hsinchu County.
Beibu,
and then you found somebody that knew your mum. That was Mr. Fan. He remembered your mum being a beauty in her days."
Fun fact, more than 400 kilometers of old trails, farming roads, and narrow hiking paths make up the Raknus Selu Trail.
For me, a lot of people asking me, why you come back and, doing with Hakka culture? A lot of people, especially, I believe there's so many Hakka people, they don't even mention they're Hakka, They might shy or something like that. But for me, I'm so proud. It's because, I used to exactly like other people. You know, I just like, okay, Hakka, just Hakka, but Hakka is so, you know, we are so different than other people. At that time, you feel like, I don't want to talk about it, you know. And then suddenly I realized that, hey, think about that. I can speak the language probably like more than 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. For kids, you know, when you grow up with a culture, you kind of assume it's part of your tradition, your family values and whatnot. You don't really question it too much. And not until you get older where you start to have your own thoughts. And especially, Danny, you're in the field of media yourself, so you become even more curious and take more proactive position here to learn about the culture.
Definitely,
right?
yeah. Every time when I share with, you know, I start to travel and talking with the people, you know, there's so many stories to tell, to relate together. So that's why I was thinking about, wow, you know, being to know who you are is very important.
So, you know, it's great to see, you know, and I'm sure we can have a lot more discussion about, you know, Danny connecting to your roots in Hakka. But I want to jump back to what Chris was talking about earlier about how, you know, the whole trail, which is 300, 400 kilometers long, is subdivided into different sections, right? And I like how you mentioned that, you know, a certain region only is familiar with that region of the trail, and they don't have much knowledge about the other ones. But that also brings up an interesting, I guess, historic progress or process that happens, that these different communities, because of the business that they do on this trail, would start to interact with each other, and they have a lot of curiosity amongst each other. And maybe during the trip, you guys may have found, you know, different subsections of this whole trail to have different types of culture or traditions.
Yes, as a photographer, maybe I see these things in a different way. And one thing I can say, every different section of trail that we walked along was different. It was phenomenal that you could have so many different types of landscape within just 200 kilometers of an island that I thought I knew pretty well, but obviously I don't. I know a little bit better now. But often the sections of trail are divided by valleys coming in, because the whole idea of the trail was to get the camphor and then later on tea out from the center down into the coastal areas and ship it out for export. It was actually all driven by you know, the need for the markets, and that need has sort of died away a bit nowadays. Instead of camphor and tea, people are growing vegetables, right?
Yes, vegetables.
So that's like
the
cash crop or beetle nut in some cases, and some rice as well. But it's not quite like it. It's not like a single product like it used to be, camphor or later on tea. So those communities, in a way, are still a bit isolated. You have to go down the valley along and back up again to get to the next one. But the trail does actually link them closer to home. You know, you do a lot less direct traveling. It's just, it's a bit rough, and a few landslides and things along the way. So I don't know if it must just be the microclimates that are created. And also you're changing. You're going from basically Taoyuan County down to Taichung County. So you're going from, what is it, the Tropic of Cancer or Capricorn?
It's probably Capricorn, I think, up north. Or but you're right. There's two different regions we're talking about.
Or from a subtropical to a tropical zone. Do you notice different types of vegetation?
Yes.
Different types of trees, different types of insects, which we became quite familiar with, right? And just the enjoyment of walking several sections. Some were so beautiful, it was really amazing, and others were so tough that you didn't really look at the scenery. I'm sure it was lovely, but I was sweating too much at the time.
You know, but you're right. From a photographer's point of view, you get to see certain details that we may not be able to pick up, and just to be able to see the difference as is in the modern world today is fascinating already. But if we have the time to look into the historic side of it, you know, how do these communities interact with each other back 100 years ago? I'm sure there's a lot of storytelling to be told as well, you know. And there could be families and marriages that are merged together because of different communities and whatnot, you know.
Exactly. In fact, you find quite a lot of that now.
That's true.
And historically, the story that we all hear is that, the clashes between different people from different cultural backgrounds, especially the Hakka coming in from the coastal areas, because all the best land had already been taken by the Taiwanese people earlier on, and pushing out the indigenous people. And so you can imagine, these terrible stories of battles going on between. But in fact, when we got to talk to some of the indigenous tribes and Hakka people who've got these mixed marriages in their communities. It wasn't quite as simple as that. And in some ways, they really did make an effort to get on together. And partly the trail is why they did that, because they were all benefiting from the trail being there and being able to make money from having the trail running peacefully.
Fun fact, in the process of reclamation, although ethnic estrangement and cultural differences led to friction, they also resulted in mutual exchange and revitalizing the cultural landscape.
Well, back to Danny, right? I mean, for you, because you are Hakka, so going through this trail and, some of them bringing back some of your childhood memories, I'm sure you have a lot of emotions that are connected to this whole thing. What was the most significant thing that you experienced through your journey?
Let's put it this way. It's like, if I don't join this documentary filming, I have no idea, those trail at all. And then after that, only thing I worry about that is like, for example, if we don't do this right now, those trail is going to disappear, just became a history. The good thing is like now, that's three different kind of organization. They try to put it together. Yeah, so that's something really good.
But not only the trail, but also the stories behind the trail, and that's actually a part of the trail. You go there to they're intertwined. You can't separate them. But did you enjoy the walking side of it? Did you find there was some section that was more difficult than others?
Some section was really difficult, extremely difficult. I don't expect at all, But some section is really nice, though, Especially during this time, it's like a Tonghua.
Oh, that's right. It's the season of Tong blossoms right now.
Yeah. So
what do you call it? Nice. You call it the May snow, wasn't it?
Is that how you say it in Hakka, I think?
对, 5月线.
That means, again, snow in May.
It gave definition to the hillsides. You see all the normal dark green trees, and then suddenly there's white blossoms all over the place. Originally, I thought they were like cherry blossoms.
It's similar.
It's everywhere. We were very lucky. It was just the right time of year.
When we watched the documentary, we certainly could be able to see a lot of tongue blossom.
Oh yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And also remember when we first go in, we feel like, just like a Jurassic Park. Remember?
It's amazing how overgrown some parts of Taiwan are, and how green and really jungly. You do expect dinosaurs to come around the next corner.
Yeah, and suddenly that's a Tonghua, falling down. It was like wow.
Yeah, it's a totally different world, and it was so close. It's so close to some big cities. Really, I had no idea of this. I lived here for quite a long time, on and off. So, like for Danny, without this good excuse to go for a long walk in the jungle, I would not have seen these things or met the people on the way who still make a living along the way.
Right. So I'm sure there are a lot of areas, even though this trail kind of runs in the mountainous areas of Taiwan, central and northern Taiwan, but there are regions of it that's pretty close to city limits, and you might be able to find the city skyline in the backdrop, at certain points.
Oh yes,
it's not high mountain though. Don't get the wrong idea. It's sort of like the foothills. So I guess we're between 200 to maximum 300-400 meters altitude. That kind of thing. So in that way, it's quite gentle, but it can be very steep in points. Going up and down across the different valleys.
Also, one thing to me, because even though this trail, you might think about is like a Hakka culture, and also with the Daya or the Seisha, the culture. But in fact, you see that it's like now it attracts so many different, from the different aspects from different area. Everybody try to put it back together. I think that's more, to me, it's more important. Yeah, everybody working together. Yeah.
Sure.
I think the government has, over the years, been putting a lot of efforts into reconstructing, right, and restoring some of the areas.
Yeah. You can see. I mean, it's. You can probably go online and find a good example of the map. You'll find these sort of diagonal markers on trees and on rocks that show you not only the section of the route you're on, and if you're on the main route A or route B, there are basically two main routes you can go, and then there will be giving you a kilometer or meter by 100 meter countdown to the end of that particular section of trail. So in that way, it's pretty organized. Even one point, they've got QR codes on stones beside the road, so you can see what
way.
It's
in
even though
Guangxi, right?
I was so surprised, you know.
Really?
Like everybody can go, and if you want to know the most story, you just scan on the QR code, you know. They got everything, you know. It's really cool.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. QR codes are everywhere these days, right? Can you imagine thousands of years from now when, you know, let's say, you know, humankind went extinct and some aliens came to the earth and they saw like all these QR codes and they're trying to figure out like what kind of language this is. It's just QR codes. That's pretty cool.
But I have to say that's still in a minority of places, right? So in a way, quite nice. It's a novelty, but
I have to say that it's like a lot of documentaries, they want to do something, they want to show something, so they pretty much like set up something, right? But this one, you know, first I thought, you know, probably doing the same thing, but our director, Kenny, he just told me that, Danny, don't worry about it. You know, we don't do anything. You just go there to find out by yourself. I think this is very important.
So the documentary is presented and filmed and experienced in the most natural state, I would say, right?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Important, very good.
Kind of some research. We knew some people were going to be around and what they do, different parts, different jobs. Like there's one guy who he's a stonemason. And we caught him actually, luckily, at the time when he was cracking open a great big chunk of rock using traditional tools. You gave it a go, didn't you?
Yeah.
As well. And he makes the staircases, stone staircases, in a traditional way, using the stones. Actually, that boulder had rolled from the hill in a landslide onto his farm, so he just set about cracking it and making staircases from it. So the trail is maintained in the same way that it was first built. It's not like with the fake bamboo concrete safety rails or concrete slabs at all. No, it's actually it's very slippery and ankle endangering in some places. Very, very slippery. You've got to hold onto the bamboo to kind of stop slipping over. It's really...
I'm sure there's a lot more to explore, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be, you know, learning a lot through the documentary. But I want to ask Danny and Chris right here, if you were to go back to that trail tomorrow, which section or who do you want to visit?
Although most memorable is the hardest, most strenuous section with the cutting through the bamboo, right?
Right.
I wouldn't possibly go back to that one. Actually, right at the start.
Yeah.
The first bit we did was pretty good, right? I mean, in a way that's good because it sets the scene. You think, oh, it's not too bad. It's always very beautiful.
Yes.
And then you sort of tolerate anything that comes afterwards. So the section in Taoyuan, just before it leads into Hsinchu, for me that was very walkable, enjoyable. Still a lot of cover from trees, so you don't get too hot. And it's super beautiful. So I like that section.
Yeah.
For me, that's the two parts. One part is in Miaoli. Remember that one is with the bamboo tunnel? Lao Guan Dao. Yeah, that one to me is very beautiful. It's very nice.
Yeah, that's really nice, isn't it? Yeah, that's also nice.
And also on the way, you can see the bamboo shoot.
Yeah. And trip over the bamboo shoots and then eat the bamboo shoots.
Yeah, and second one is I would like to go back to visit Mr. Fan, the stone man. Yes. Because the way... well, to me, it's like not just like we used to live in nearby, you know, when I was a kid, you know. And secondly, the way he still continue doing that skill, I don't think nowadays people were doing it. And so that's very valuable. So I would like to go back and visit him.
He had a good setup there, his whole farm. He could live independent of modern society.
Yeah.
Actually.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's hidden up his valley and he's got his ginger and his rice and everything he needs he grows. He's got a water source on his farm. I was thinking, this is a great place to live. That's a nice section too.
That one's nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like a craft and skill that has been lost in time, you know?
Yeah, and he's 80 years old or something, about 83 years old.
83 years old.
You know, I remember his fingers were so about double the width of mine, I guess because he'd whacked them with his chisel and hammer so many times. It reminded me of my dad's hand. My dad's an engineer as well, so I thought, there's a connection right there. It's like, I know this guy, I know how his mind works. There's not much difference culturally with people around the world, actually.
Well, thank you guys for having me as a curious guest right here to learn more about the trail. And I'm sure I'll be learning a lot more through the documentary as well. Looking forward to it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. It's been great to be
every
on your
time
show.
it's like when you're having fun, the time is flying, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that it already?
Don't miss the next episode on YouTube, Spotify, Shock App, Audio by SPH, or on ICRT Radio. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of a Raknus Selu Trail podcast.